Welcome to Tangential Soup, a weekly podcast discussing life in Australia, technology, food, fitness, and the like, hosted by myself, David Caddy, Melburnian, independent developer, and tea enthusiast, as well as my good childhood friend, Alexander Carr, Sydney Sider, slave to the man, karate practitioner, and lover of adventure. So, to all our dedicated listeners, of which there are probably not too many anymore, you might have wondered where we went. Well, probably nowhere, but a lot has changed in the last little while. So, welcome to Season 2. Also, we probably need to change that intro, Alex, because you are no longer a slave to the man. Nor am I have to say.
No.
We are both
neither of us are slaves to the men.
Well, we're not unemployed. You are gainfully employed. I am between opportunities.
But you're creating your own opportunities.
Yes.
So that's the opportunity itself.
My title in the intro is actually more apt now. I am a proper independent developer, as opposed to a very part-time independent developer.
Yes, well, I mean, part-time independent developers are still independent developers.
That is true.
It wasn't a lie.
That is true.
It wasn't a lie.
But I could have said that I was a Bosch man through and through.
Well, you could have, yes. And you could have also been like those people who say they're authors and churn out, 50 words a year and are always working on their first book. So
That's right. It's kind of like our game.
Yes, it is exactly like our game, actually.
There's been under development for 2.5, 3 years.
Yes, and nothing's happened. So,
but soon. Or now.
Soon, yes. Yeah. It's the line,
it's all
isn't it? Yeah. But it will happen this time.
It will happen.
Yeah. Circumstances have changed.
So look out for that. Yet to be titled.
Yeah.
Project Axolotl.
Be ready. You can start holding your breath now.
We might have a Kickstarter for it at some point.
Yeah, okay.
Once it's a bit more fleshed out.
Yeah. Do Kickstarters for games usually work out very well, though?
Some have gone gangbusters.
Okay.
It sort of depends on, I guess the amount of promotion that it gets, how novel your idea is, and I guess also how close to production you are.
Mm-hmm.
So how much you can actually show people so they don't get scared off thinking it's probably vaporware. And also how realistic you are with your goal. If we put it up there, we're asking for $1 million, I don't really think we'd quite get there.
Yeah.
But, if we ask for a few thousand or something, it might be possible.
Okay.
Just to help kick it along.
Something to explore when we've made it past the first 50 words.
Yes. Well, we have a vision.
We do, as do most people who start out.
We have a goal.
Yes, just got to action that goal.
We have a rough design. We have a rough plot, or a start of a plot.
We do.
You had some good ideas. I can't actually remember what they were because it's been so long ago since I read it. But there was some good ideas in there.
I don't even know where those ideas are.
No, they're all in Google Drive.
Okay.
They're all there.
Well, there you go. So, get ready, folks. It's all happening.
Yes. Did you see IKEA left New Zealand off a map?
I didn't see that.
I know this wasn't in our topics, but that was just hilarious.
No, I didn't see that.
I don't even know how that happens. So they have like this kind of whiteboardy type product, but it's got a world map on it as well, right? Sort of in these colourful splodges.
Okay.
And it's just a standard world map, except that it's missing New Zealand.
Do you know what I want to know? How do you get to the point where you miss New Zealand, though? Because, they didn't draw their own map, did they? They took it from another map,
That's
presumably.
what I want to know. And it was also hilarious. I went on, the website, the Australian version of IKEA, to, look at this product, and it's still up there. They issued an apology, but they're going to keep selling it until it runs out, but they're not going to make it anymore. But they have other products with world maps on it, right? This is not their only one. And all those other ones have New Zealand. And this one doesn't.
It kind of makes me think that maybe it was a deliberate attempt to
Yeah,
just exclude
maybe.
New Zealand. Just a bit of a spit in the face.
Bit of a hoax by some employee.
Yeah.
Or an employee out the door and they're like, ha ha ha. And then no one noticed for ages and they were like, oh.
Because it makes me think, I mean, you couldn't do it by accident because, you know, a world map is rectangular in shape usually, and I assume this whiteboard would be because that's the shape they usually are as well. And, you know, you've got other countries that are not parallel, kind of upwards vertically from New Zealand. I suppose China is, I guess. It's that kind of side of Asia. So to cut New Zealand out, you would actually have to deliberately slice into the world map and just take it away. Unless they just cut the individual areas of the world out and then stuck them on wherever they liked them. And I suppose that's a possibility, but again...
No, there's a big sort of empty space in the bottom right-hand corner where it could easily fit, but it's just not there.
Okay, well, there you go. Yes, somebody's playing a joke.
Yes.
Probably.
So you wanted to talk about the Prime Minister?
Well, look, I thought it would be a good idea to just cover a few topics that, you know, are still funny and I guess somewhat relevant to us today. And the first one I thought we'd cover is the Australian Prime Minister.
What do you think of good old ScoMo?
I don't think much of him. And honestly, I don't think much of Australia thinks much of him. If you know, if I'm being honest, and just from talking to people and reading the news, there aren't many positive things to say about him. I believe he was formerly the immigration minister to Australia, and he originally came up with the "Where the bloody hell are you?" ads for Australia, which had Lara Bingle sitting on a beach.
Oh, really? Huh.
Saying, "Where the bloody hell are you?" Yeah, he was immigration minister when those ads were put out. And I think that we could probably include a link in our...
Absolutely.
In the show notes. But it's, you know...
I wouldn't say it's the best ad ever, but I think it did do okay.
I think it was fairly famous internationally. And I certainly remember it when I think it was early 2000s when you put that out. He was immigration minister. I don't know what he did after that, but then Australia had a bit of an incident where another political person, Dutton, decided that it was time for our then current Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull to leave office, and he called don't remember exactly what it's called, but he called some kind of, or he called for the Prime Minister to call a vote among the Liberal Party, to which he belonged, and the Prime Minister did that after realising that he didn't have support within his own party, and this person, Peter Dutton?
Good old P. Duddy.
P. Duddy, yeah. He then went on to not successfully claim Prime Ministership, and the vote ended up going to Scott Morrison, which I think was just a compromise from all the parties within the party, because Peter Dutton, I think, represents quite a right-leaning voice within the party, as opposed to Scott Morrison, who is, I think, while he's still right-leaning, he's more centre than Peter Dutton is. And there was a third candidate that was put forward, which was Julia Bishop, yes, who I think is very well liked outside of the party, and who I think is very respected in political circles. But I think it was widely agreed that she just didn't get the vote because she was a woman. The Australian Liberal Party doesn't believe in women in politics for some reason. So, yeah, it was all very sad. And Scott Morrison was Australia's, I think, 17th Prime Minister, and he was the 5th Prime Minister in 7 years, if I don't miss my guess entirely, which I think
has been a heck of a lot.
Because this has unfortunately become a staple of Australian politics, where a Prime Minister is elected.
They never see out their term.
As Malcolm Turnbull Malcolm Turnbull was elected, but he actually took the leadership during a term from Tony Abbott. And Tony Abbott legitimately won an election from
Kevin Rudd.
Kevin Rudd, yes, who was backstabbed by Julia Gillard.
Kevin 07.
Kevin 07, yes. I'm just so many like white prime minister names that I'm just struggling to remember them.
I know, coming and going. Conga line.
And so Julia Bishop backstabbed Kevin Rudd to gain prime ministership, and she was then re-backstabbed by Kevin Rudd. Kevin Rudd then lost the election to Tony Abbott. Tony Abbott was then backstabbed by Malcolm Turnbull. Malcolm Turnbull was then backstabbed by Malcolm Turnbull. Malcolm Turnbull was then backstabbed by, Peter Dutton, really, who then lost his bid, and then ScoMo won the popular vote within his party, and now on a two-party preferred basis, he's going to lose the election to the Australian Labor Party. So there you go.
You meant Julia Gillard, not Bishop.
I did probably mean
Yes.
Julia Gillard, yes.
It stabbed old Kevin in the back.
Yes. Anyway, it's all just a mess, and I think the Australian public is pretty generally just sick of...
Kevin stabbed Julia.
Policies. So... Julia did take it from Kevin, though. So Kevin introduced the carbon tax, and then Julia and then she stabbed him, and then he re-stabbed her.
Oh, that's right. Double stab.
Yes. Yeah, it was double stab. But then, obviously, the Labor Party had lost all faith of the Australian population, so then they voted in the Liberals, who did exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So hilarious that Dutton was the whole force behind the challenge, and he couldn't even get it over the line.
Yes.
I think had Bishop got in, the Liberals would be doing quite well now.
I actually think so as well, yes.
Had they backed Turnbull, I think they would still win the next election.
I think so too, yes.
As it is, I think Labor's going to win, even though no one likes Bill Shorten.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, he's a very unpopular choice for Prime Minister, but he's still a better choice than Scott Morrison.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually wouldn't be surprised if Scott Morrison were to lose his Prime Ministership at some point.
You mean before the election?
Yes, maybe, possibly. I mean, it's being called in May or June, I think, so it's not that far away.
Yeah, it's soon.
Okay, maybe it's not going to happen, but I don't think he's going to keep control of the Liberal Party, because I think it's probably going to be a shake-up after this whole debacle. And obviously, really kind of immediate consequence of getting rid of Malcolm Turnbull was that he then stepped down and resigned his seat, which is one of the areas in Sydney, and instead of being replaced by a Liberal candidate, the seat was actually won by an independent. So right off the bat, the Liberals already lost one of their seats because of this event. So I don't think anyone in the party would be that happy with Peter Dutton, but Peter Dutton's come in and he's immediately taken the what's his place now in the government? Something to do with immigration, I think.
Yeah,
Immigration Minister.
I think that's right.
But he's a part of the. I don't exactly understand how it works, but he's part of the senior arm of the government, so he has benefited from this personally, even if
the cabinet,
the Liberal Party hasn't. Yeah, cabinet. Yeah. So that's kind of what's been happening around that, and it's all just been a bit of a mess.
So going forward, Bill Shorten's going to win, and then someone's going to backstab him as we get closer to the next election, because he's not going to be popular enough to go up against whoever the Liberals have at that point, which won't be ScoMo.
Look, to be honest with you, I don't know. I mean, if I were in his position and I was seeing everything that was going on in politics, eventually you've got to kind of say enough is enough, and I guess put something in place to make sure that if you are the leader, you're going to be the leader for your whole term, because it would just be ridiculous to backstab him again. And I think it's been proven that this kind of backstabbery, if that is a word, doesn't yield any results. And really, I mean, if they're going to be backstabbing Shorten, now's the time to do it, because if they do it during the term when they're the in power party, it's going to have bad results.
No, but they can't do it now, because although as unpopular as Bill Shorten is, another backstab would mean that they're no better than the Liberals. And then it would sort of put them on an equal playing field. The only way they could do it is if Shorten actually just stepped down.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I suppose it would be hard to do. So, yeah, I suppose you're right about that, actually. Yeah. But it's honestly just a circus, and it's an embarrassment. I mean, I've always kind of thought that, the political system is a bit stupid. We have people who are supposed to be leading us who are just embroiled in these ridiculous scandals, and if you watch whenever they sit in Parliament, they just sit there yelling and swearing at each other, and
Oh, I know, it's ridiculous. Question time.
they're not leaders, they're just power-hungry lawyers and economics majors, really.
I always thought that from a young age, that just so much argument for argument's sake.
Yes.
Like, a good robust conversation around something is fine and healthy and probably positive, but when just calling people names backwards and forwards and saying, oh, you don't know this, you don't know that, like, that doesn't achieve anything. And it's been that way for probably a decade or more now, hasn't it?
Oh, I think it's
probably gotten worse, but really.
I think it's been like that forever, really.
Well, true, but
and I mean, obviously, it's coming from a less refined time where
social
politics. Well, I mean, kind of. I guess social media is bringing it to the fore, but I mean, kind of politics was in the olden times more of a man's job, and a lot rougher, and maybe we're still growing out of that. Perhaps that's the way it is.
Thank God for Trump and Brexit, eh? Otherwise, we'd be the laughing stock of the world.
Right. We don't even get a mention.
No. Just flying under the radar.
Exactly.
As long as we can straighten it out soon, it'll be fine.
Well, yeah. I mean, oh my gosh, the things that are happening in the US politics, it's no wonder we don't get a mention.
No.
Obviously, the US government was in shutdown for a month and a half or so, or something ridiculous like that. And that's obviously been taking a lot of the news, and then every time Trump tweets anything, it just kind of explodes, and, Australian politics just really kind of sits on the back burner for the rest of the world. And I mean, you see it in Australia, but...
I love how unrefined his English is in his tweets. And how many spelling mistakes and things that get through, like...
I don't know why he doesn't have somebody check it.
In a world with autocorrect and, with a staff of, I don't know, hundreds, you'd think, you could just have a little check before you send that out to his massive audience.
But the thing is, it just points to his priorities, because clearly he doesn't think anything of grammatical correctness, spelling, structuring his sentences properly, making sense in what he says.
No. Well, that's true. Like, I know it's kind of nonsensical anyway, but it would be nice if it was spelled right from the president. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think that in a lot of ways we're getting better than what we expected from Trump. Although, really the damage that he can do is still yet to be shown.
That's true. He's not going to get another term, though, so it's only really, this year and some of 2020, but by 2020 there's probably not that much time to do too much, so if they can just hold out one more year without everything blowing up.
So I think, can another Republican candidate run against Trump?
Of course.
Or, right, okay. So the Republicans could nominate somebody else as their official candidate instead of Trump.
Although it gets down to two somehow, doesn't it? But there's sort of a before election-y type thing, maybe within the parties. But yeah, you can totally have someone come out against Trump There will
Yeah.
definitely be someone running in the Republican camp. There'll be many people to start off with. And yeah, that's true. They probably will end up picking someone else.
Because he's been pretty bad for the Republicans.
Yes.
Although having said that, I mean, I suppose he's kind of in a lot of ways gone with. He's done the Republican things and then also done a lot of other things. Because I think one of the big things that he promised to introduce, which was, I think, one of the main running points for a lot of Republican candidates, was reduced tax for kind of corporations and for high income earners. And he ran on that promise, along with a border wall.
Yes.
It's ridiculous, to say the least. And he delivered on the tax cuts, but
he didn't get rid of Obamacare though, despite trying.
Oh my God! Could you
Not
imagine?
yet, at least.
Yeah.
I love how the plan was, we'll get rid of that because it's awful, then we'll figure out a better system.
Yes.
Like, I'm sure Obamacare isn't perfect, but at least give us the alternative before you take away the little that there is.
Yeah, exactly. Just along those lines, I know that we've got another couple of topics to cover, but I was just thinking of Trump's promises when he kind of ran, and the border wall and everything like that. It just reminds me of, like, just the one image I have of the Brexit campaign, which was a bus, and it had on it, X amount goes to the EU, to support Spain and Italy and whatever else, and to prop up the currency and yada yada yada. X billion, this amount of money could be channeled into the NHS, and it's just so ridiculous when you think of, like, all the money that's gone into this, the fact that Britain's going to have to renegotiate all these trade deals, yada yada yada. Like, it's cost them trillions of dollars already, just already, and like, just the promises that were made for Brexit, and then the fact that everyone who campaigned for Brexit didn't actually stay around to see it through. All of these broken promises, just in the people that actually voted for it, they just had no kind of. There's no accountability there. No accountability in politics.
Yeah, it is a mess. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
Yeah.
Theresa May keeps trying to come back with deals, but they don't like her deals.
I know.
However, they still like her enough to not vote her out, because that was the thing, wasn't it? She, like, sort of failed on getting the deal through. And then they had her vote for the leadership or something, and then she stayed. So now
the leadership has to come from within her own party, though. And I think the thinking is there's nobody else who wants her job in her party.
No, I know. But it
the other parties would love it.
A lot of her own party didn't even support the deal, though, when it was going through Parliament.
No, they didn't. No.
Except they still support her. But you're right, it's just because no one else wants the job.
Exactly. Yeah. So
It's her in a tough spot, though.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, she was, I think, elected to bring through Brexit, and that's what she promised to do, and that's what she's trying to do. But the notion of a no-deal Brexit is very interesting, because
they're running out of time, aren't they?
Yeah, it's like the 18th of March. They've got about a month.
Although they could probably get an extension, but they can't do that indefinitely.
Well, I think I don't know if they can get an extension. You'd assume that they could.
A hard Brexit would be a bit of a disaster for Britain, though, wouldn't it?
Well, I think just because, like, the trade deals they'd be exiting on would just be the default trade deals that or I don't know how exactly it works, but I think there's a default trade system that the EU has set up with the rest of the world, and that's the big sticking point, the trading with the EU, because obviously Britain is, if not in name, really in location and in everything but name, a part of the EU. So, like, they have all the kind of travel between the EU, and, like, there's obviously a lot of kind of crossing over of everything that happens there, and to kind of exit without that would, I think that's going to be their main problem, just the trade, and I think the travel between the countries as well. But I don't know how they're going to work that out exactly.
Yeah, it will be fascinating.
And I don't know what that's going to mean for my UK passport, whether I'll be able to travel to the EU.
No, well, that's true too.
Of course, that's probably not a consideration for for Theresa May, but I think about it sometimes.
I do hear other people on podcasts talking about that, though. The people that travel a lot, they really would prefer to stay in the EU.
Oh, of course, yeah. And I think there's also talk as well of holding another, what do they call it, vote, a plebiscite type thing.
Yeah, but that's pretty tricky when it comes to, sort of the will of the people. Then you go back to the people and you go, are you really sure? Because then you have like a second chance for it to be voted down. Like, you might be able to do it. You could possibly phrase it in a way where, look, this is like the new situation. This is the deal that's on the table. Do you want us to take this deal or back out, kind of thing? Maybe you could do it like that.
Yes, yeah.
But it's still a bit tricky.
Yeah, and all the money that's been spent on it and all basically the disaster that's come of it, it's all just a mess. Well, it makes Australia look good by comparison, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. We're just going through a few litres, nothing more than that.
Yeah, exactly.
So you wanted to talk about old Muskie, Elon Musk?
Look, I thought it would be appropriate because
CEO of Tesla and the Boring Company and SpaceX.
We've talked about him a lot.
We've have.
Talked about him a lot. And I think you made a comment to me, which I generally agree with as well, that despite everything that's happened, which we'll talk about in a moment, he has still been a net positive influence on the world, or contributor to the world, I think were your words.
Yes, net positive on humanity, I think he'll end up being. Because earlier on in his career, I think I would say that I was pretty much an Elon Musk fan. And now that's tempered a little bit. I'm a fan of his work, less so of the person. Yeah.
And I mean, really, to make a difference for humanity, you don't have to be a good person.
No,
I think a lot of
true.
people have proved that. So I think there are kind of three main points that I had down to talk about. The first one was obviously everything that happened with the rescue of the Thai soccer team in Thailand.
That was an incredible story.
It was a fantastic story. So basically, what happened, if you didn't hear about it, as in if you didn't follow the news for about 2 weeks,
yes, living under a rock.
Yeah, if you were under a rock. Basically, a team of a team of young boys who play soccer in Thailand went on a cave exploration. There was some flooding in Thailand, which essentially trapped them in a section of the cave. There were a few days where we weren't even sure if they were alive. We later find out that they had managed to stay in an area of the cave that was above the level of the water, and basically some divers found them. And then there was a lot of news coverage while they tried to pump the water out of the cave. That failed. They then brought some wetsuits into the boys, and then with the assistance of some trained divers managed to bring them out. And this happened, I think, over the period of about a week or 2 weeks or around that time. And while that was happening, Elon decided to get involved and suggested a rather impractical mini submarine to bring the boys out. Now it was I think suggested by one of the divers that it wouldn't be practical, just because of the situation where I think that there were several underwater and then overwater areas that needed to be travelled to reach the boys, and I think some of the areas were quite tight, and they didn't think that the mini submarine that Elon had invented had lying around.
I don't think he invented it, but yeah, it was a bit of a ridiculous notion.
Would do much, but I think Elon tried to push the point a bit, and then one of the divers called him an idiot, and he actually. The plan was announced to bring the wetsuits to the boys and then kind of swim them out. And then Elon actually already brought down he then just decided to bring down his mini submarine anyway. And then tweeted about it and made a bit of a show of it. And then one of the divers called him an idiot. And then Elon responded in probably not so fair way of calling the British diver a child rapist. because the man lives in Thailand, and I think Elon doesn't have a very good opinion of single men who live in Thailand, because obviously there is a lot of child sex slavery that goes on there, and a lot of white people that go there to cash in on it. He later apologised, but I think I don't actually have his apology here, but I think his apology wasn't particularly sincere.
No.
Yeah, and then he later made another comment, which I had a bit of a laugh at, over the fact that he was surprised that diver hadn't decided to sue him, and then he was responded to by the diver's lawyer, who said that the diver was absolutely suing him, they just hadn't gotten around to it yet. And then that kind of all happened, and Elon was all over the news, and I think Tesla went downhill a bit in regards to their share price, and it was all a bit of a mess. But then old Elon decided to try and save it by going on. He went on a podcast or a radio show or something like that, of this presenter who has their guests smoke a marijuana joint and also drink whiskey while they're talking. And Elon went on there and did both of those things. And I think we all just witnessed, maybe he was a bit overworked and just kind of got some pretty bad publicity for this as well. And then he ended up being stepped down as one of the chairs of Tesla, still holding on to the CEO-ship of Tesla and all his other companies, I think, as well. I don't think he was stepped down from anything.
No.
But yeah, it was all a bit of a saga for him. But he's been out of the news. I haven't heard anything from him recently.
Which is good. He should just not comment on anything other than like electric vehicles and space exploration.
Yes, agreed. I mean, obviously he has a lot of knowledge, and he's really good at building hype around products, and he's also really good at not meeting deadlines around those products and then
Yes.
rebuilding the hype. And he's just good at stringing investors along, but he's probably not so good at cave rescues.
No.
So yeah, and I think there was also comments at the time that he was working like 100 hours a week, and he was all just a bit stressed. And
That may be so, but there's not really any excuse for such
No.
comments.
no, there isn't really. It's all a bit unfair.
Especially in the face of such a tragedy. I mean, it wasn't as much of a tragedy as it could be, but it was an incredible story, and they did lose one of the divers, didn't they?
Oh yeah, one of the divers actually. Yes,
Yeah.
one of the divers died. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, so that was terrible. Unfortunate.
Yes.
And really, we didn't need Elon for that. I think that's the main story that we can take out of
Yeah,
this.
he tried to inject himself into the situation where, like, it's one thing to say, look, I have these things, and if you need them, then they're at your disposal. That's probably fine. Still a bit PR-y, but fine.
Mm-hmm.
But then anything beyond that, he should have just shut up and not done anything unless they requested it of him.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
Thanks again for joining me, Alex.
Not a problem, David. Pleasure as always.
You can follow and get in touch with us on Twitter at Tangential Soup, and you can find this week's show notes for more information about today's topics at tsp.fm/201. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider sharing it with anyone you think might also, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.
Ciao. Look, I am glad we're getting back into the podcast. I'd certainly let a lot of things drop. I haven't gotten back to karate yet. You said karate practitioner, but that is not a true fact. I am not a karate practitioner. I am a karate dropout.